Hello everyone and welcome back to Survivor Talks with Mike. Today we will be starting our coverage of Survivor Season 3 Africa. Today we will do the pre-merge recap, so there's a lot to cover. Let's get right into it. Episode 1, the contestants come in on a truck. Jeff introduces the season, location, and two tribes, Samburu and Boran. The driver enthusiastically urges them off the truck, then bids them farewell and have a nice day. The contestants get to choose which supplies they would like to take with them, as much as they feel they can carry. They split up and head for their camps, so from now on I will cover each of them one tribe at a time, starting with Samburu. So for Samburu, during their hike, Frank is getting frustrated by the tribe's pace and their interests not aligning with his own. They do manage to get to their camp, only to find out they need to build a boma around it to protect them from the wildlife. Kim Powers is getting annoyed by Frank's militaristic style of assigning and doing chores, but Brandon cheers her up and just tells her to keep smiling through it. They then go to get water but find their watering hole is very shallow and filled with feces. They'll need fire to boil the water. They try all night to make fire but are unable to. In the medical kit, Kim P finds a telescope and realizes that they can pop out the lens to use it to make fire. Her and Silas get the fire started, then Frank comes over and builds it up with the rest of the way, meaning they now have fire and thus have access to water. At the challenge, they are behind most of the way, but manage to pull ahead in the final leg so they don't have to go to tribal council. As for Baran, they struggle carrying all the water they brought along, so they decide to dump all but one of their gourds to make it lighter to carry. Diane is leading the group, but is getting too far ahead and veering off track. Despite the struggles, they make it to camp. Jessie finds herself unable to keep anything down. We get a gross but good transition where she is about to vomit, and then we hear Tom splash some water. They find their watering hole, and it's similar to Samburu, but Tom and Ethan dig it out to make it deeper and have the water flow better. They, however, don't have a fire and therefore can't drink the water. Lex informs us of amoebic dysentery, which will have them puking and crapping their guts out, and they'll get that if they don't boil the water properly. They decide to open a can of cherries to get some moisture and sugar for their bodies. They are only supposed to eat one and pass it on, but Ethan notices Clarence take two at a time. At the challenge, Baran get out to a strong start, but between Ethan tripping a couple of times and Diane passing out, they're unable to stay strong throughout the whole challenge and end up losing. The next day, while the tribe goes off to get water, Clarence offers to come along, but they say he isn't needed, so he stays behind to take care of Diane. While at the watering hole, everyone is suspicious that Clarence is sneaking the rest of the water and food. When they return, they find out that Clarence did open up a can of beans, but it was for Diane in order to help her regain some strength, but he does admit he ate some of it too. Things turn ugly with Tom, Ethan, and Lex confronting Clarence about this, and some of the things Tom says come across as very racially charged, saying things like, "You don't have those rights," and "that jive thing that you did," and just referring to him as boy in general. It's kind of an ugly scene. Diane also throws Clarence under the bus by saying she didn't even need or want any food. This seems to be a lie, however, as we can see her smiling when everyone turns against Clarence. At Tribal Council, Clarence admits he made a bad decision and apologizes for it. Tom says he forgives but doesn't forget. The votes are cast, and Tom still ends up voting for Clarence along with Diane, but Diane is voted out by everyone else, with Clarence having some tough words for her since he helped her out and she stabbed him in the back. So my thoughts on Diane: she was relieved to be out already since it was tougher than she expected it to be, but I think she could have done at least okay had it been an easier season. From the moment she passed out at the challenge, however, it was clear she was going home. So my review for this episode: I think this is a great opening, except for everything surrounding the Bean situation and the racial attack on Clarence, especially the way CBS edited it to be so against Clarence too, since I have heard from interviews since then that he wasn't the only one taking multiple cherries. He was just the only one Ethan noticed, and he might have only noticed because of some unconscious bias. Otherwise, I think the episode is great at introducing us to the tribes and the harsh environment of Kenya. I give episode 1 a score of 8 out of 10. Moving on to episode 2, we'll start with Samburu again. They awake sore from sleeping on the sand, but Frank is already barking orders. The tribe has become divided by age, with the elder members doing the majority of the work, while the youth put minimal effort into chores. At the reward challenge, it's close, but Samburu comes out on top right at the end once again. The elder members of the tribe approach Silas in an attempt to bring him to their side. Frank says if he sided with the younger members, he'd be siding with the weaker members. Lindsay was eavesdropping on this conversation and now knows that Silas might be playing both sides. Silas feels secure in his position, being the swing vote and having the power to choose. He forms an official alliance with the younger tribe mates, but knows he needs to play ruthlessly to win. At the immunity challenge, they have to drink cow blood, and Samburu wins their third consecutive challenge. On to Buran. After the first tribal council, they all agree voting out Diane was the right move, but some are feeling Clarence should have gone for eating beans. At the reward challenge, Kim Johnson trips at the end, giving Samburu the win. She feels awful about it, but the rest of the tribe is supportive. Jessie is still struggling, and we get a close-up showing just how chapped her lips have become. Clarence says the water tastes bad, but you just have to get it down because otherwise how can you help your tribe? Lex and Tom make an alliance with Ethan, but Ethan sees how everyone likes Lex and worries that he might be saying the same things to everyone. At the immunity challenge, Kelly struggles to drink the blood and Buran loses, sending them to their second tribal council. Tom approaches Clarence and agrees they have to vote out their weak links first, but he still goes on to vote for Clarence along with Jessie. Everyone else votes out Jessie. So my thoughts on Jessie, we really didn't get much from her, but up to this point, she was the only one shown being nice towards Clarence. She was sick right from the beginning, which made her a fairly obvious boot. So my review for this episode gave us more of each tribe's inner workings with the age split of Samburu and the alliance of Lex, Tom, and Ethan, along with learning that Lex is seen as the leader and is trusted by everyone on Buran. My one issue with this episode is the challenge. I get that getting cow's blood that way is traditional, but that doesn't make it humane, and it was not something I needed to see on screen. So I give episode 2 a score of 8 out of 10. Moving on to episode 3, we'll start with Buran this time. During the night, they are visited by some lions right outside their boma. Everyone is awoken and can't get much sleep due to fear. They decide to make sure there is no holes in the fence and they are fully protected. At the reward challenge, Buran win what is likely the best reward of the season, 100 gallons of clean water. That means they won't have to worry about getting and boiling water, at least until that runs out. We get a scene of them all enjoying the water before quickly moving straight to the immunity challenge. They have to make a distress signal to get a plane flying overhead's attention. Tom says they should move to a clear and flat area, and Kim Jae says that color will stand out, and she just so happened to bring paint as her luxury item. They dye their mosquito nets different colors using the paint. They also strip to their underwear and wave their clothes around to get attention. Tom sticks a feather in his butt for some reason. Noting the clear area and use of color, Buran wins their first immunity, so they will not go to the tribal council for the first time in this episode. On to Samburu. The elder members of the tribe get up early and start doing chores, to the annoyance of the younger tribe members. The younger ones see it as the elders sucking up, while the elders just view it as things that need to be done. Brandon at least does the cooking for the tribe, but he really just does it so that he can make it the way he wants and give larger portions to his friends. Lindsay makes bead necklaces for all the younger people, which the elders all take notice. Frank says it's a waste of time, but I feel this might be a coping mechanism for him, and I think secretly Frank really wanted one of those necklaces. Brandon says it's probably poor strategy, but it makes it more fun. Silas prods at Carl and gets him to divulge information about his personal finances, being well off and having multiple nice cars. Carl sees Generation X as being problematic for the future. We'll see how their generation does as the seasons progress and they get older and Generation X becomes the older tribe in later seasons. At the reward challenge, they go way off track and end up losing. We see a small sandstorm hit their camp and knock some things over before they start the immunity challenge. They decide to make an SOS using the circle of their boma as the O. While making the S, Lindsay gets dehydrated and Linda comes across Kim P taking care of her. She knows that Lindsay isn't that strong. The crew on the airplane says that the SOS made out of the boma looks too much like anything else around the area, and they might not even notice it while flying by, so Samburu loses. At Tribal Council, Jeff asks about their necklaces. The youth say everyone is friends, they are just a little bit closer. The vote ends in a tie 4 for Lindsay and 4 for Carl, split down the age divide. On the revote, it remains tied, so for the first time, we have a deadlock with no past votes to go off of. Lindsay and Carl have to face off in a trivia. They tie on a few questions before they are asked if pouring hot water on a tick will make it retract, which Lindsay answers correctly as true and Carl incorrect with false. Being a doctor, I would have thought he knew that, but he is a dentist after all. So my thoughts on Carl: he seemed nice enough and actually seemed to be more liked by the youth than Frank or Linda, but his wealth made him an easier target. I hope he learned from his views on the younger generation since then. My review of this episode flies by, right from one challenge to the next, and then the longer tribal council. I don't mind that, however, and we get clear reasons for why both Lindsay and Carl are targets. The moment with the lions in the beginning is also exhilarating. I like the quiz for a deadlock more than just going on past votes, but it still isn't the best way to resolve a tie, as we'll see issues with the quiz later this season. I give episode 3 a score of 8 out of 10. On to episode 4. We'll start with Baran once again. Kim J is cooking up the mush for the tribe. Clarence is worried about Tom not eating much. He doesn't like the taste and has a hard time getting it down. The two of them go look for something different to eat and notice some fruit in the palm trees. Tom tries to climb at first, but Clarence urges him down since it's unsafe. They instead throw rocks. They finally get 2 fruits to fall, and after opening it, there isn't much to eat on them and isn't worth the effort. But it is nice to see the two of them getting along so well after their rocky start. At the reward challenge, Kim J can't keep up, and they lose. Kim J apologizes to everyone back at camp. She's frustrated knowing she hasn't performed well for the tribe. Everyone feels bad for Kim, but also kind of see her as the weak link if they go to tribal council again. While on a hike for water, they run into a Cape buffalo, one of Africa's most dangerous animals. They all stand still while Tom whistles and grunts to scare it off. After they get some space, they walk in a different direction, and they are realizing just how dangerous every day out there can be. At the immunity challenge, Baran takes a strategy of carrying all the heavy items first, so they can just run in the lighter stuff after, and it pays off. Kim J is relieved and thinks everyone is happy they won for her sake too. With the day off, they go for a hike and take in the surroundings. It's nice to see such a friendly, cohesive group compared to the Samburu tribe's chaos. At Samburu, after coming back from tribal council, Lindsay is fuming and kind of rubs it in the elders' faces that she is still there. Silas acknowledges that wasn't what the tribe needed, and they had to come together as a team by getting the elders' support and not pushing them away. The next morning, the younger members sleep in, but the elders have no inclination to do their work, and when tree mail comes in, they have no water boiled and are not ready for the reward challenge that's going to be in 30 minutes. Silas tries to rally the troops by taking a knee and gathering everyone around. Linda points out how cheesy it is and questions how genuine he's being. They win the reward challenge, giving them spices they can use to make the mush taste a little better. They realize that all of their clay pots have cracked, making it harder for them to boil and store water. Kim P complains that their tribe just can't seem to get their act together. The next morning, Frank wakes everyone up early to go get water and tells them they don't need a snooze button, just get up. At the immunity challenge, they lose by tiring themselves out before getting to the heavy objects. The next day is Frank's 43rd birthday, and Linda finds him carving his wife and 2 daughters' names into his torch so he can carry them around with him. It's a sweet side of him that we haven't seen before. Silas tries to get the elders to pile their votes on Lindsay since she already has votes against her. Linda doesn't like how arrogant Silas is. She says something isn't right about him. Not sure if it's his name or something else, but this might be prophetic. Silas has a Richard Hatch-esque confessional saying to write the check for him already because he is going to win, and maybe that's prophetic too. At Tribal Council, Jeff points out that if they are still not working as a team at the merge, they haven't got a chance. The elders decide to put their votes on Silas, but are outnumbered as Linda receives 4. So my thoughts on Linda: we didn't get much from Linda, but it was nice to have someone acknowledge the history and importance of the land. Her treatment of the younger members was a little weird, and I think had Carl not made himself an easier target, she likely is voted out first from their tribe. My review for this episode: I really enjoyed the contrast between the 2 tribes in this episode, and the treatment of Kim J and Baran versus the treatment of all the elders in Samburu. It was also nice to see Clarence and Tom mending their relationship a little. Silas and Lindsay also are really starting to emerge as villains of the season. The encounter with the Cape Buffalo was also exhilarating. I give episode 4 a score of 8.5 out of 10. Moving on to episode 5, starting with Samburu. Silas is unhappy that the elder tribe member threw their votes on him instead of Lindsay. Things get heated between him, Lindsay, Teresa, and Frank. Brandon decides to be understanding and calm everyone down. The next morning, they receive tree mail that tells them to pick 3 members from their tribe to go to a summit. They immediately choose the 2 remaining older members and Silas. When they get there, they are met by Jeff and 3 members of Baran, who they will now switch tribes with. Returning to the Samburu camp are the 3 new members, Lex, Tom, and Kelly. The new Samburu members are unhappy to see the state of their camp and how little work had been done around there. They immediately get to work gathering firewood and digging out the watering hole. Kelly states that her, Lex, and Tom might be wearing red now, but they are still Baran at heart. Knowing none of the former Baran members had any votes, they felt a little safer as long as they can figure out who has votes on the Samburu side already. Lex suspects Frank might have thrown a vote on Brandon at some point. At the reward challenge, they have to herd goats, which you think Tom would be good at since he's a goat farmer, but Samburu loses. Back at camp, Lindsay is feeling uncomfortable about competing against Silas now. Brandon feels he is needing to put out Lindsay's fires and try to get the vote onto either himself or Kim P. At the immunity challenge, Samburu works together and communicates well to win immunity. Moving on to the Baran side, when Baran received their mail about sending 3 members, they talk it out and decide on Lex, Tom, and Kelly. After the swap, Baran gains Frank, Teresa, and Silas. When first seeing the new members, Ethan believes they are about to steal their flag or information from them. He then realizes he's just lost his 2 closest allies in Lex and Tom, and will have to start over. Silas has also lost his allies in this swap, while Frank and Teresa have been given new life. Teresa approaches Kim J to tell her about the situation her and Frank had been in. Frank sees some elephants and admires their magnificence. At night, Frank and Teresa divulge to the rest of the tribe everything that happened in Samburu, while Silas silently listens. At the reward challenge, having both Silas and Clarence help them immensely, as the 2 of them could just carry 2 goats at a time, allowing them to win some chickens. Silas bonds with Clarence over being potential targets for the next tribal council, and Clarence says if they want to work together, they'll need to win immunity. Ethan then proposes to Kim Jae that they should consider throwing the next challenge and voting off Silas before he can get to the merge and reunite with his former Samburu allies. Kim Jae agrees with that and says that Teresa and Frank would also be on board with that. Ethan says it's a win-win. They either win immunity or get to vote out his biggest threat. At the challenge, Silas tries to order everyone around and rush them to build the puzzle, but with most of the tribe not giving it their all, they end up losing. Silas then campaigns to get the vote off of him by targeting Frank or Clarence. Kim Jae talks to him and uncovers how close he is with his former tribe mates, which informs her how dangerous he would be to keep in the game. At Tribal Council, Clarence says how nice it is to have both him and Silas there for brute strength, but even he says that he can't trust him as Silas is voted out 5-1, with the one coming against Frank. So my thoughts on Silas. I said Linda's words about there being an issue with Silas could be prophetic, and that is due to some legal issues he has faced outside of the game since then, which I don't really like. As far as in the game, however, his schmooziness made him a great villain that was satisfying to see his kingdom come crashing down in this episode. My review for this episode is that this is one of the all-time great episodes, the first ever tribe swap. The way the swap was done is, I think, probably the best ever, and with the players completely caught off guard by it, it made it work all the better. Ethan and Kim Jae's plan to throw the challenge and take out Silas was also great, and I believe a first. Finally, ending with Silas getting his comeuppance was very satisfying. I give episode 5 a score of 10 out of 10. On to episode 6, Beren. The tribe is anticipating the merge and discussing what Jeff meant by how much they have assumed already. In case the merge doesn't happen in 3 days, they decide they should ration their food. While being told the instructions of the reward challenge, Kim Johnson signals an L and 4 to Kelly, indicating that Lindsay has 4 pass votes. Beren loses and has to watch Samburu enjoy a buffet. Clarence can't stop thinking about food and says that he's going to become a food critic. He proposes to the tribe that if no eggs are laid by the next morning, they eat a chicken. The next morning, Kim Jae checks the chicken coop for eggs and finds one small one. She places it on a pan and awaits Clarence's reaction. Clarence sees the egg and exclaims, "Oh hell no." He then goes to the chickens and says he hates each of them and they did it just to spite him. After some teasing, they still do eat a chicken. Treemail gives them a bow and arrow for the next challenge, and they get to practice. Frank, identifying himself as an expert, teaches the rest of the tribe. At the challenge, surprisingly, Frank failed to hit a single target. Luckily for Beren, Ethan nails 3 targets and they win. As for Samburu, Lex and Tom are frustrated because they were left on lookout duty for 5 hours the previous night, while the original Samburu members would just throw a log on the fire and go back to bed. They each speculate who might have been voted out. Lindsay suspects Frank, while Tom and Lex worry it might have been Kim Johnson. Each of the former Berens know the importance of knowing who has previous votes. At the reward challenge, they finally see that Silas was voted out. It's a blow to the Young Alliance, but they aren't shocked. Samburu manages to win, and they gorge themselves on all the lunch, which has a bit of a negative effect on Kim P, as she has troubles keeping it down, but she does manage to do that. She's just in pain. Lex and Tom each do fairly well at the immunity challenge, but they come 1 target short of winning. Back at camp, Kelly remembers seeing Kim Jae signal to her an L and realizes that this is for Lindsay, but she thinks the 4 is meant to be sign language for B for Brandon. She overhears the Young Alliance talking, which confirms that Lindsay should be their target. Worried that she'll be voted out, Lindsay talks to Tom about potentially flipping to their side to vote out Brandon. At Tribal Council, they say They all say how close they've gotten as a new tribe, but Baran still has their ties to the old tribe mates. They go to vote, and it's a 3-3 tie between Lindsay and Tom. We already know that that means Lindsay will be going out on pass votes, but they still each get to make their cases, and Lindsay says that she's proud of herself for not turning on her friends in the end. But the vote remains the same, so Lindsay goes out on pass votes. My thoughts on Lindsay? Her time on Survivor was an emotional roller coaster, but that made her entertaining to watch. And the way she came around full circle by the end made for an interesting watch. My review for this episode, this is another really solid episode with fun moments, with the chickens and the archery, but the end kind of hurts it when they have to spend so much time on the revote when we already know what the outcome will be. So I give episode 6 a score of 8 out of 10. That's all for the pre-merge. Stick around for next week when we cover the post-merge. So if you like this video, hit like, and if you want to catch that next video, hit subscribe. Thank you for watching.